Welcome back. You're still tuned into Midcap Radar on CNBC TV 18. For the markets, 40 points higher on the Nifty. We are seeing gains of around 0.2%. There's some pickup. We'll have to see whether that sustains or not. And the Midcap side of things looking good as well. But as we were pointing out earlier, there has been some relief for dye industry as the prices of basic chemicals such as acetic anhydride, caustic soda flakes, they have corrected sharply. This was an industry which saw exports falling by 22% in FY23. Factories were running at 50% capacity. But what is the outlook, because there are a lot of specialty chemicals company which focus or which cater to the dye industry. Let's discuss that and what the possible impact could be. Rohan Gupta, director at Nuvama Institutional Equities, joins us now. Rohan, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we've been talking about how a lot of companies talk about cut in discretionary spends, and they have been seeing a demand slowdown as well. Which are the companies, according to you, which have an exposure to the dye industry and which could possibly be impacted because of this as well?
Sonal, hi, good afternoon, and thanks for having me here. So yes, the discretionary spend has been impacted since last 6 months to 1 year. There are many companies who are having direct or indirect exposure to this sector. Some of the names which you have mentioned, like Kiri, Bodal and all, they have direct exposure and direct because they are completely dependent on these sectors because of the product preferences which they have. They are also in exports as well as in the domestic market. Some of the companies have a limited exposure to these sectors like Aarti, Atul and all these other players who have roughly 15% to 20% of their revenues coming from this segment. We, as you rightly mentioned, we have been seeing these industries and these companies have been having pressure as far as the demand was concerned in last 1 year, and the results of these companies have been impacted.
Rohan, afternoon. So that's on the margin side, on the raw material side. What about on the supply side? Because China has been dumping a lot of chemicals. The fears of recession has also held back demand from countries, from the European region. So can you talk about the increased supply and how much lower is demand on the back of that?
Yeah, hi, Rima, good afternoon. So yes, that was a margin pressure and the demand slowdown which we have witnessed in the industry in last 1 year. Right now, the entire specialty chemical industry and also including these companies as well. The biggest problem right now is the inventory destocking. The inventory destocking accelerates whenever the prices are falling. So the bigger problem for these companies is basically how they are going to liquidate the high cost inventory. Their point is well taken. When the raw material prices are falling, definitely there is a possibility of margin expansion that can add to the profitability, but that is going to happen only when the demand in the systems come back. So first of all, the biggest challenge here will be how the industry will offload all the high cost inventory which they are sitting with, and also when the demand in the industry should pick up, then only we will see probably in a second half the margin are going to improve for this industry. As far as the current quarter or current scenario is concerned, I don't see that there is any big respite as far as the profitability is concerned. In my view, the profitability for most of these even dyes and pigments companies also is going to remain muted.
Okay, so you are saying that despite the margin expansion that can come about possibly because of raw material price cut, demand is still going to be subdued, and that ultimately will not have a big impact on companies like Aarti Industries or Atul Limited positively.
Yeah, for these companies even less because they are only 15 to 20% only revenues coming from this segment. Even for the direct companies like, though we don't cover these smaller names, but for Kiris and Bodal and all these companies also, we see first there will be demand pressure, the revenues will decline, then they have to liquidate the high cost inventory since China is dumping. They have to take a very aggressive price cuts in the market right now. So probably the current quarter there is going to be a lot of bloodbath in the industry as far as these commodity products are concerned.
Okay. What about refrigerant gas companies, the likes of SRF, Deepak Nitrite? What is the outlook expected? What's the pulls and pressures for these companies?
So Deepak Nitrite is not in the ref gases. So there are key players in ref gases are SRF, Navin Fluorine and Gujarat Fluoro. SRF being the largest player in refrigerant gases, in our view, they are going to be the most impacted because the ref gases prices have corrected a lot. And rather than prices, it is basically demand which is very, very muted as we have seen in India, even the northern market have seen a very late start of the summer, and they initially in month of April and May, which are the high summer months in the country in northern market, they have not been so harsh in the current summer season. That's why the AC demand has been impacted and personal air conditioning demand has been impacted. That has impacted the overall ref gas demand in the country. So even the exports market has been challenging because of the recessionary impact in markets like US and Europe. So we have seen that the volume has been impacted a lot in refrigerant gases. The biggest problem here in refrigerant gas is also that we have seen a huge benefit of price gain last year. So that is already sitting in the base. So last year when the company benefited extraordinary pricing scenario in refrigerant gases, this time it is reversed of that, and that's what is going to have the impact on most of these companies' profitability, including SRF, Naveen, and Gujarat Fluoro.
Okay, all right. So that is about the refrigerant gas, but generally, Rohan, I wanted your take on what exactly started this issue. We are talking about a lot happening in the industry, demand being lower, supply side issues also. Is it only because of China reopening, or whether there are other factors, including recession and lower demand coming in from US and Europe as well? Do you think this is something that will impact the entire year for these chemical companies?
So now we are living in a complex world. Many things are completely interrelated. So there are multiple issues which has happened in last 6 months. So first of all, the biggest thing is that we are seeing all these numbers right now on a very heavy base of last year. So last year in H1, most of these specialty chemical players, refrigerant gas players, all of them have seen a bumper profit, which was driven by both volume, operating leverage, and also a very solid pricing scenario. So the any price increase actually helped them in higher bottom line. So first is we are sitting on a very high base. Second, in last 6 months to 9 months, we have seen multiple things happening. Europe energy crisis, the consumption being down in Europe, US facing a recessionary environment, and then in India, in some pockets, the demand issues. The most important thing right now is that the raw material prices have started falling. That is impacting the all the specialty chemical chain prices. So when the raw material prices fall, then everything have a cascading effect. The biggest change is that trade don't want to hold any inventory when the prices are falling, and the reverse happen when the prices are going up. So right now nobody wants to keep the inventory. Everybody is in inventory destocking mode. Definitely China was also in inventory destocking and have flushed some inventories in the market. So all these things are happening in last 3 months too, and probably is going to continue for another 3 to 4 months before we see that the inventory destocking is over, the channel is out of the inventory. Then only we will see the real impact of demand, and probably the restocking which may happen from Q3 onward. Then only we will see some demand revival. So as far as the current year is concerned, I think that H1 is going to be significantly under pressure.
Okay, all right. Rohan, thank you so much for joining us. It was an insightful conversation. We spoke about a whole host of segments inside the chemical sector as well. Thanks a lot for your take today. All right, that's about the chemical sector overall and specifically about the dye segment as well. For the markets, 35 points higher on the Nifty. Midcap index has picked up some pace, so we'll be tracking that for you. But for now, we will take your leave on this edition of Midcap Radar.